Hey everybody, it's Tim Shea with the Shea Group Realty of Keller Williams here in Beverly, Massachusetts. I hope everybody's doing well. We're heading into the fall season. People are asking me, well, how is the market doing? You know what I say? That depends on whether you're buying or whether you're selling. So what I've got here for you is some key data that will help you determine how the market is, if in fact you're buying or if in fact you're selling. Things have shifted a little bit from previous markets in previous years, and things are kind of chugging along on a month-to-month basis if you've watched any of my previous episodes. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at some of that data and tell you what that means. First, what we're going to do is we're going to look at a year-over-year comparative on a multitude of key criteria. Right now, we've got September 2017 market stats for Essex County, Massachusetts, single-family homes and condominiums. What we're going to do is we're going to look at years 2016 compared to 2017 and the changes and what those mean in a couple of key specific areas. So first we're going to look at sales, and from 2016 to 2017 there's been a reduction by a little bit. We're down to about 801 sales for the year, so we're down about 5.8%. Median price tends to grow. It's been growing month over month over month, and right now we're up at 8.8%. We're at an increase of 8.8%. Inventory, which has been our constant factor in this market, there's just been a lack of inventory, is down 14.9 from the previous year. We're down, right now we've got about 1,696 units. Pending supply, we're pretty much even. What pending supply means is that what's going to close in the next 30, 60, or 90 days. So this is a good forecast as to what the current months of market are going to look like. Do we have a lot of sales? Is it going to carry us through the winter months? So this is a good number. It's definitely been higher, and it's certainly been lower. So this is a good comparative. In month supply, one of the biggest drivers of this, again, if you've seen any of my previous episodes, I've defined what is a buyer's market and what's a seller's market. When you look at a market, look at it on a 12-month scale, with 6 months being an average balanced market. It's good for buyers and it's also good for sellers. So anything above 6 months of inventory is a buyer's market. It means that there's a lot of inventory and buyers get their picking. It also means that prices aren't that high because the demand is not there, because there's just not a lot. So on the opposite end, if you go below 6 months, it means that it's a seller's market. It means that there's not a lot of inventory, there's a lot of buyers, so the demand for price tends to increase. You build in a little bit of a premium because the demand is there and properties are going to sell. The old saying is that a property is worth what a buyer is willing to pay for it. And in this market, that couldn't be more true. So there's a lot of buyers out there and not a lot of inventory. So what we're seeing is a lot of competition on properties. Multiple offer scenarios, escalation clauses. I'll talk about a little of those things in a few, but right now we're at about 2.2 months of inventory, so it's still very, very low. I do see it creeping up a little bit, so that's alleviating some of that pressure on the market. Key comparative here, I bought in 2005, and we are now 12.8% above the same period in 2005, which was the peak year. And then looking at it on a year to date, that's from January 1st to currently, we're actually up 1.8% in sales. We're up 7.9% in the median price. Again, that continues to rise. And in total sales, we're up 9.9%. So overall, it's a good market. I mean, it's not doesn't have as much inventory on it, so there's not as many transactions that are occurring. But if you're selling, it's a great market. So you know, you can get a premium in your property automatically built into it. The real gauge is that, you know, as we head into these fall and winter months, are the buyers still going to stay in the market so that it will continue that demand? And we'll talk about that in a second as well. Now let's go ahead and break that down into different segments, because that looked at the overall market as a whole. Now I want to look at it in different price points, because this is really what shows you where there is some true competitiveness. And then where there's some not so much pressure on the market. So the first demographic we're going to look at is under 450,000. And in this case, sales are down 13.1%. Inventory is down 18%. and month supply is actually down 6.2% to 1.35. So if you're buying in this market, this is the most competitive market for buyers right now. It's also the market that sellers can get top dollar. So if you thought your house was worth maybe $250,000, you might be able to get closer to $300,000. There's a lot of people that are buying in this price point, and it's a really good opportunity to go ahead and get some good equity build up in your property just because the market is demanding it. The next price point that we want to talk about is $450,000 to $700,000. This tends to loosen up a little bit. We're actually up 11.1% in sales. In inventory, we're also down at 18.4%. Excuse me. And in month supply of inventory, we're down 29% to 2.2%, but it's an increase from the previous month. So we're starting to see that increase as well. The sweet spot here is $700,000 to $1 million. We're actually down in sales 6.5%, but you'll also see that the amount of sales aren't as great as the other price point demographics. It's just not as huge a market for people that are buying in this price point. So the numbers are reflectant of smaller numbers. In inventory, we're actually down 11.3%. And in month supply, we're actually up 6.5% to 4.9 months. So we're getting close to that balanced market of 6. And then in $1 million and over, where it's a complete buyer's market in this. We're actually up 40.1% to 38 sales. Again, smaller numbers. In inventory, we're up 1.9%. And in month supply, we're actually down from this time in the previous year, but we're actually up on a month-to-month basis. But we're down to 8.1 months supply of inventory. So if you're above $1 million, you're talking about pretty much a buyer's market. You get your picking. So you see how that shifts around from $450,000 and below to $1 million and over, and how that kind of goes from a seller's market all the way over to a buyer's market. So looking at it overall as a whole, you see that we're kind of shy on inventory. But when you start to break it down into different price points, we've got a different sense of how the market reacts in different price points. So how is the market doing? Well, we haven't really seen that influx of inventory coming on. We've said it for the last 3 years. We're waiting for that huge influx. I think what's really happened is that people have found the properties that they're happy with, that they've either upgraded to or they've expanded on, and people just don't need to move. So I think that that's one of the biggest indicators as to what's happening with the market as it relates to the amount of inventory that there is out there. Interest rates are good, so that there's a lot of buyers. But we're hopeful that maybe as we head into this winter months, people are going to have a change of heart, and we'll start to see in the spring market that big influx of properties coming on. And I think, you look at some of the national indicators. There's some Fed economists who believe that economic growth is good. It's steady at about 2% annually. We've got solid job growth going on right now, and that interest rates are fairly low. Others believe that interest rates are the key indicator to a bubble. I don't believe that to be the case with this market. Just because the constraints that were so loose in previous markets are just not there. So I think we may see a general increase in the interest rates, which will potentially decrease purchasing power for some buyers, and that might remove them from different segments of the market. But what you got to really remember in this whole overall scheme of things is that real estate is a local industry. So what's good for one neighborhood may not be good for another. So what you see in Detroit may not be the same as you see in California as the same that you might see here in Beverly. What I do know is that in Essex County, Massachusetts, we've got a very competitive market. There's a large demand for people wanting to move here. We've got so many great features. Specifically here, our office is located here in Beverly, Massachusetts, and Beverly itself has been an incredible hotbed for people moving to it. We've got the most amount of MBTA stops that take you into downtown Boston and also take you all the way up to Newburyport. It's the most convenient area to go ahead and work in Boston and live outside of the hubbub of the city. You've got miles and miles of coastline. You've got great access to northern New England, New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont. You've got schools that are on the uprise. We've got a new middle school being built here. we're proximity to 95 to 128. So there's a ton of reason people want to go ahead and move here. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful area. But remember, real estate is a local game. We are actually heading into the winter months where things tend to typically slow down a little bit. My philosophy has always been, if you need to go ahead and sell through the wintertime, because you're a bigger fish in a smaller pond. Why wait till everybody else is in the market selling their properties? All the buyers are still out there. They're going to still actively look. So if you need to sell, not necessarily holding off until the spring might not be the best time. If you need to sell, go into the winter months where your showcase in front of all these buyers is so much greater because there's not as many properties. But I hope this information was good for you. You guys know that if you ever have any questions about the market, any properties that are out there, you know you can always call or text me at 781-789-5128, or you can always visit me on the web at MrLista.com. Come on, say it with me in your best Boston voice. MrLista.com. Until I see you out there, happy house hunting. Bye-bye.